South Africa has developed a peculiar political ritual. When confronted with a national scandal, a moral crisis, or systematic corruption, the state does not immediately pursue prosecutions or even a structural reform. Instead, it announces a commission. This commissions promise truth, accountability, and justice. They summon witnesses, produce lengthy reports, and dominate public discourse for months or even years. Yet, when the cameras leave and the reports gather dust, the outcomes rarely resemble justice. The perpetrators remain largely untouched, and this pattern reveals a troubling phenomenon. South Africa does not fully pursue justice. It flirts with it. Two major examples that illustrate this dynamic are the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the Zondo Commission. More recently, the Madlanga Commission seems likely to follow the same pattern. Together, these inquiries reveal a recurring pattern in South African governance: elaborate investigations that expose wrongdoing yet struggle to deliver meaningful accountability. Today, I want to talk about something that I would like to call South Africa's flirtation with justice, because with all those commissions that have come up over the years, you have to ask yourself, does South Africa want justice, or does it just want to appear like it wants justice? Let's talk about it. After the end of apartheid in 1994, South Africa faced an impossible question. How should a new democracy deal with the crimes of the past? The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was South Africa's solution to dealing with the crimes of the past. Chaired by Desmond Tutu, the TRC sought to uncover the truth about the human rights violations committed during apartheid, all while promoting national reconciliation, as its model was one of reconciliation over retribution. Instead of pursuing widespread criminal trials, perpetrators could receive amnesty in exchange for full disclosure of their crimes. The government would say the commission succeeded in many ways, as it created an unprecedented public archive of the apartheid era atrocities and also allowed victims to tell their stories before the nation. But to South Africans, the TRC revealed a fundamental tension between truth and justice. Hundreds of perpetrators received amnesty, yes, and the hundreds of other cases, those in which the perpetrators either refused to confess or were either denied amnesty, were referred to prosecutions. Yet, many of those prosecutions never materialized. Families of victims have repeatedly argued that the democratic state quietly abandoned these cases. The result is that the country heard the truth about many crimes but rarely witnessed the legal consequences. In other words, the TRC provided closure without accountability. It was the first major instance of South Africa flirting with justice, coming close enough to claim moral authority, yet stopping short of punishment. Decades after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission completed its work, a disturbing question remained unanswered. Why were so few of the cases referred by the TRC ever prosecuted? In May 2025, President Cyril Ramaphosa established what is now known as the Khampepe Commission, chaired by the retired Constitutional Court Judge Sisi Khampepe. The commission was created after families of the apartheid-era victims took legal action against the state, arguing that the democratic government had failed to investigate and prosecute crimes that the TRC itself had referred for criminal proceedings. For many families, this inquiry represents the first official recognition that something may have gone deeply wrong after the TRC. Hundreds of cases, including murder, torture, and enforced disappearance were referred for prosecutions when perpetrators were either refused amnesty or denied it. Yet, decades later, the overwhelming majority of those cases remain unsolved. The Commission began its work in 2025 and was initially expected to complete its investigation within 6 months. However, delays in documentation, legal applications, and procedural challenges have pushed the timeline further, with the final report now expected by July 2026. But even before its findings have been released, the commission itself has become politically contentious. Current and former political leaders have raised objections to aspects of the inquiry and its leadership, with calls emerging to remove Judge Khampepe from the process altogether. These developments raised a troubling question for me. Sorry. Why would those in power resist an investigation into why justice was never pursued in the first place? And for critics, me again, the timing and resistance surrounding the commission provoke an uncomfortable suspicion. I mean, if the inquiry confirms that political actors interfered in with prosecutions, it could expose a cross-generational failure of democratic leadership, with administrations under President Thabo Mbeki to President Jacob Zuma and beyond, to uphold the promise of accountability that the TRC seemed to represent. In this sense, the Khampepe Commission does not merely investigate the past, it also investigates the silence that followed it. And like so many commissions before it, South Africans are left wondering whether this process will finally produce justice or merely just another report. If the Truth and Reconciliation Commission taught South Africans anything, it was that when the country faces a serious crisis of justice, there's always a reliable solution. Appoint a commission. Commissions of inquiry, in theory, are meant to strengthen democracy. They gather evidence, call witnesses, and produce detailed reports that are supposed to guide prosecutions and reforms. At least that's the official idea. In practice, South Africa has developed something of a habit. When a scandal becomes too big to ignore, a commission is announced. They are opening statements, dramatic testimonies, late night news coverage, and eventually a report so thick it could double as a doorstop. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the 1990s revealed horrific truths about apartheid era crimes. Many cases were referred for prosecution, but most of those prosecutions never actually happened because the truth comes out, the nation watches, then justice seems to take an extended holiday. That's how it works. It almost begins to feel like a national routine. Something goes wrong, a commission is formed, the public learns the truth, and then everyone politely waits for the justice part to take place. But that may or may not arrive. You just have to wait. Which brings us to the Khampepe Commission, an inquiry created to investigate something so absurd, in my opinion, so absurd. Why so many of the apartheid era cases identified decades ago were never prosecuted in the first place. In other words, South Africa did not just need an investigation to investigate the crimes. No, no, no. It needed another commission to investigate why the first commission's cases never went anywhere. Lovely. Now, let us take a step back to 2018, where more than 2 decades later, after the TRC, South Africa once again faced a crisis of governance. During the presidency of Jacob Zuma, allegations emerged that private business interests had systematically captured state institutions for personal gain. The response was another commission. This time, the Zondo Commission, which was chaired by Raymond Zondo, the then Deputy Chief Justice, yes, of South Africa. The Zondo Commission began its work in 2018, and over the course of several years, the Commission heard testimonies from politicians, whistleblowers, and civil servants. The hearings revealed how key state institutions, including entities such as Eskom and Transnet, had been manipulated to benefit politically connected individuals and corporations. Central to this revelations was the role of the Gupta family, whose close relationship with politicians allowed them to influence government decisions and secure lucrative contracts. The scale of the corruption exposed by the commission was staggering. Its final report ran to thousands of pages and provided detailed recommendations for criminal investigations and institutional reform. For years, South Africans watched these proceedings with a mixture of outrage and fascinations. I was a bit fascinated, I'm not gonna lie. The commission became a national spectacle, broadcast live, debated in the media, and followed closely by the public, yet a familiar pattern soon reappeared. Despite the extensive evidence produced by the inquiry, Prosecutions have been slow and uneven. Many of the individuals impacted by the Commission's findings have not yet faced any significant legal consequences. The Zondo Commission revealed the truth about state capture in an extraordinary detail, but the truth alone does not dismantle systems of corruption. Once again, the country witnessed a dramatic investigation that exposed wrongdoing without immediately delivering justice. The most recent inquiry to capture public attention is the Madlanga Commission, established by Cyril Ramaphosa, chaired by the retired Constitutional Court Justice Boyiseli Madlanga. The commission was created to investigate allegations within the criminal justice system that may have been compromised by corruption and political interference. These concerns were raised publicly by Ntandla Mkhwanazi, who alleged that powerful figures were obstructing investigations and undermining law enforcement efforts. If these claims are proven to be true, they represent a profound threat to the rule of law. Because if a justice system that cannot investigate corruption within its own ranks risks losing public confidence entirely. Yet, the decision to respond with another commission raises an uncomfortable question. Does South Africa truly lack information about corruption, or does it lack the political will to act on what it already knows? Previous inquiries, including the Zondo Commission, have already produced extensive documentation on institutional failure. But the problem is not the absence of evidence, it is the absence of consequences. There's therefore a risk of the Madlanga Commission following the same trajectory as its predecessors, a detailed investigation that reveals wrongdoing but struggles to produce meaningful accountability. I like to call this political theatre. Yeah, let me land this plane. Commissions of inquiries play an important role in democratic societies. They provide mechanisms for fact finding, transparency, and even reflections for these institutions. However, in South Africa, they have increasingly taken another function: political theatre. By appointing a commission, governments signal that they are taking allegations seriously. The processes appear transparent and even rigorous, often stretching over months or years. During that time, public anger may gradually dissipate as attention shifts elsewhere. When the final report is eventually released, the public moment that demanded immediate accountability has often passed. Because in this way, commissions can transform cries into extended procedural processes. They are buying time, essentially. They are saying, we are working on it. Trust us, we are working on it. You see, you can turn on SABC every night, every day. We are working on it. Even YouTube, you must watch it on YouTube. You must stream it. We are working on it. But all they're doing is buying time for political actors while deferring the difficult work of prosecution and reform. Justice is not denied outright. No, we are working on it. But then instead, it is delayed because these commissions take years and years and they are wasting money. I didn't even get into the money part, but they are wasting a lot of taxpayers' money. It is delayed, it is complicated, and it is often diluted. And that is the cost of flirting with justice. The long-term consequences of this pattern extends beyond individual cases of corruption. Repeated investigations without meaningful consequences risk undermining public faith in the rule of law. Because not only do people not trust the government, they don't trust the law anymore. When citizens observe that even the most serious revelations rarely lead to punishment, they may begin to question whether accountability is possible at all. Democracy depends not only on the laws and institutions, but also on the belief that those institutions will function as intended. If South Africans come to believe that wrongdoing will always be investigated but not punished, the legitimacy of the entire system begins to erode. And here's my thing. This is where I'm concluding this. I can understand that these commissions of inquiry have played a vital role in uncovering the truth about the country's past and present. They have also exposed atrocities committed during apartheid and documented the extraordinary scale of corruption within the South Africa, right? I can understand that. But I also understand that a revelation alone does not constitute justice. We know what she did. Then what? Now what? What's going to happen? Because until these findings of the commissions consistently lead to prosecutions, to institutional reform, and tangible consequences for those who are responsible, they will continue to represent something less than accountability. They will remain what they have been too often, which is just South Africa's flirtation with justice. It's kind of like South Africa wants to pursue this goal justice, but it's kind of like, let me just keep her here for now. I'm not really going to pursue her. Let me just keep her here for now, which is like, what is the point? What is the point? And this is why I call it political theater. I did not even get to talk about how much those commissions cost because it's absurd. It's absurd. And my country is one of those countries that are always saying we don't have the budget for this, we don't have the money for this, but they always have the money for commissions where nobody gets arrested. Lovely, lovely. But anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was so frustrating for me to research and make, but I really liked doing these kinds of videos. So do like, do comment, and leave a comment. Wait, I said that already. I mean subscribe. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.